Welcome and hello, everybody. Howdy, meeps, and welcome to the show. It is 6 o'clock. Oh, no, it's not 6 o'clock because George isn't here. Actually, I don't actually know, Kevin, where you're located. Where are you located? Sorry, Chris. Why did I call you Kevin?
I have no idea. It's eight
I don't
o'clock here.
either.
I'm in Alabama.
Oh, okay. So it's 8 o'clock in Alabama. It's 9 o'clock in Ontario, which is in Canada. And so it's getting late. It's getting late for those of you on the West Coast. It's 6 o'clock, and y'all suck. But it's getting dark here, and the wolves are howling. So I'm not sure if I love it. It is very cold right now, though. Today was kind of warm. It was wet and mushy outside. So I dressed in my Arizona Sun Devil stuff so that I could feel kind of bright and vibrant while I was marking papers today. But we're here today with Chris Eastridge. It is the month of Chris's. We started with Chris Porter. Today we have Chris Eastridge. Next week, I don't know, it'll be some other Chris. If you know a Chris who likes game design, let me know where they're at, what they're doing, and we'll reach out and maybe we'll have them on the show next week. It's before Christmas, so we can probably do it. And then the week after, is after Christmas, we can probably do a show then. I don't know. People will be around. People will want to watch things. I don't know. But today we're talking to Chris Eastridge. And Chris, welcome to the show. Good to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. So, Chris, I don't know you very well, but I know you have a bird, and that bird is called Holiday, and you also make games. And Chris makes games under the auspices of Moon Saga Workshop, everybody. So later on, we'll have the link up. But Chris, can you tell us like your origin story? How'd you get into games, game design, games in general, all that kind of good stuff?
Gotcha. So yeah, games. I started with video game development
Okay,
back
cool.
in 2012. Walked in on one of my buddies coding, asked him what he was doing, and he's like, "Trying to make a game." And I was curious about that. I was like, "Why are you doing that?" And he's like, "My brother made like $1 million on games." So I'm like, "Okay, I want to learn how to make games now." So I started learning how to code. I started with the basic stuff, and I released a couple things on Google Play, some arcade games, stuff like
Mhm.
that. And I got scared of taxes and stuff when people started paying for it. So I took it down, and I was like, I don't understand business. I got to learn business. So instead of going back into video games, I realized that I really like the tactile nature of like prototyping the video game
Okay.
stuff down, and I was like, I'm just gonna make board games. Like I really like doing that. So I just started taking my prototypes that were physical already and continuing on with them physically. So I mean
Oh,
that's the
so
gist.
when you were making video games, you were actually developing paper prototypes first.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah. I was pretty quick with prototyping in like the digital space using like Unity 3D and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
I like to visualize, like, especially if I'm at work, I can't program, and if I'm doing on my break or something, I'm over here with, like, pieces of paper, moving stuff around, thinking about how
So
things are gonna
like
work.
nobody can tell. It's like stealth coding.
Yeah, basically.
Right. So back in the day when you were making these games by coding, you weren't actually that wasn't your day job. You were doing something else.
Yeah, I was in the Air Force,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. And when you say you, so I have to tell you that you said when I walked in on my buddy, it sounded like something weird was going to happen. It
Yeah.
was like something strange is going on, but he was just coding everybody. He's just
Yeah,
coding. That's all he was doing.
his pants were on.
His pants were on. That's important to know. Although I mean, you don't have to wear your pants while you're coding. I mean, I could take my pants off right now and nobody could notice.
Nobody knows what's going on. No, just kidding.
Nobody knows. And so, from the Air Force to game design, that's a big transition. How did that go? And are you still active duty, or are you done
No.
with the Air Force?
So, I went from the active Air Force to Guard in Alabama just because
Hmm.
my situation, and I just transitioned to that.
Hmm.
And then from there, I actually did software engineering. So I'm still a process automation engineer full time
Hmm.
for a steel mill, but I also do publishing and game design basically full time every single day as well. So
So you got like 8 hours of process engineering, and then 8 hours of game design and publishing and
pretty much, yeah.
filling stuff. So it's funny. That's my dad is an electrical engineer. He was actually process control engineering in steel. That's what he did before he retired. So he was at Algoma Steel in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, which just had it was just huge in the news that the government gave like some huge bailout and they some big weird kind of like um, What's it when something's weird is going on? Conspiracy.
Conspiracy?
Maybe it's conspiracy or some kerfuffle is going on right now about Algoma Steel, but anyways, not a big deal. But yeah, yeah. And do you find that your background in software design and engineering and process control helps you with game design?
Oh yeah, it's definitely troubleshooting, all the time, like fixing bugs. But in game design, it's kind of like the opposite. You're trying to create a problem so you
Oh
have a
yeah.
solution. So
That's a
yeah.
neat way of thinking about it. I never thought about it like that. Like you're actually trying to create something that people can solve in a creative way, right? And
Hmm.
use all the tools that they have to solve the said problem. Which I guess is kind of the one of the definitions of game is that it's an obstacle that you choose to engage with and solve, right? And that there you go. You're engineering, reverse engineering a problem,
Yeah.
knowing that there are solutions, possible solutions out there to it. That's a very good way of thinking about it. I like
No
it.
one
I like
ever
it. I
said it
like
needed
it.
to be fun either. You just got to be a solution.
Right, right, and then eventually, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you'll find the fun in it. So how about your career as a gamer, just playing games? Now, you mentioned you started off in video games, but did you play mostly video games, or did you play mostly board games and card games prior to design?
Mostly video games. I didn't really have a lot of friends that played board games. I think
Mhm.
the most that I was probably able to play was like, um, I don't know, Can't Stop or something like
Right,
that.
which is
Simple
cool.
games like that. Yeah, it's fine. But like, um, Ancient Worlds from Ryan Lockett was like one of the first ones that I brought to like a friend group, and we all enjoyed it. And we started like getting more into the hobby, and we started getting other stuff like Dead of Winter and
Right,
just a bunch of random stuff, Smash Up, and eventually I just stayed with it and just kept playing.
right, it kinda infected you.
Yeah, Ryan
Yeah,
Lockett's to blame for sure.
I would blame Ryan a lot too. Yeah, he's a good guy, and he's like, the triple threat of, artist, designer, and publisher and
Oh
everything, so
yeah.
he's a great guy. So in terms of your designs, the fir was Parks& and Potions the first game you designed?
No, I designed probably like so many other ones before, but none of them were worthwhile that I thought,
Okay,
to bring to publishing. So Parks and Potion was the first game that I took from complete concept to published.
okay, and what was that journey like? Was it a long time? Was it, like, a lot of play tests with random people?
Oh, it was a really long time.
Yeah,
So it actually started as a video game called Color Combo, and
okay.
so it was like you have these little cannons that shot paint at each other, like through the air, and you had to like try to make the paint mix in the air, and
That's
and
fun.
then and then I was like, I don't really care for this too much. I'm gonna turn it into something else. So I did like a sliding puzzle where you still have to like swipe the colors, and then they mix and get into goals and stuff.
Okay.
And that was the very first prototype that was physical, where colors were changing and going somewhere.
Mhm.
And I took the concept from the little arcade game that I made, and I applied it to painting houses. And you were just collecting different paint, and you were using those paints to paint in different neighborhoods, and that was what Parks and Potions originated from. And eventually, we're just like, okay, this seems kind of boring. Let's do something more fun. And eventually, we landed on Parks and Potions, and everybody really enjoyed it. So we're like, yes, we finally found it. So
And when you say "we," are you working with other people?
just play testers, just groups of friends, and things like that.
Yeah. So you are pretty much like a one-person show when it comes to your company, right?
Yeah,
So it's you doing the design and the publication and probably then doing the art direction and working with graphic designers and illustrators to make your game whole. And do
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
do you have like development teams? Are you working with somebody, or is it
I have
really
a
just
bunch
you
of
out there
people.
playtesting?
So for the most part, everything that happens with the game design itself, obviously that's me. I do the
Mhm,
publishing, the marketing, all that stuff. I learned early on that like I can't do everything by myself 100%. So I started doing
mhm.
some consultation. I do have a good groups of people that are different demographics. So I'll say, hey, you want to borrow this game so you can play test it for me, give me feedback. Because I've identified you are the target demographic, things like that. But I have a lot of people who help me in my local area. I have a lot of friends in the industry that help me in different ways. So I'm not alone in that sense, but I basically run everything. Art direction has Ammon Anderson. He's pretty
Oh,
much been my,
amen. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, he's pretty much been my dedicated sort of art director for things. I'll tell him exactly what my vision is, and he'll tell me your vision sucks. Let me do this, and I'll be like, all right, I believe in you. So Ammon's been a huge help for that.
That's great. Yeah, he does that for a lot of people, which is wonderful. He's a very helpful guy. It's funny because I'm just writing in my notes over here, nine-tailed fox, and it's because I saw the cards that his stepdaughter painted that he released through Levity. And I said, I've always wanted to make a game about foxes, and she had watercolor painted a bunch of foxes, and I love foxes. I love watercolors. So I said maybe I should just, hire her for my art. And then, anyways, just see how Ammon
Yeah,
gets everywhere. Way to go, Ammon.
yeah, for real.
Yeah. And so from there, Parks and Potions. What are you doing with that now?
So Parks and Potions started fulfillment in September.
Hmm.
We had some delays in Europe because of the fulfillment hub. Some situations happened, but it's finally being fulfilled, and it should be done as of this week. But now it's just in retail. You can find it at hobby stores.
Hmm.
I'm still pushing it on my websites. Um, just had like the little holiday market with backer kit, but for the most part, you can find it online at my store, Amazon, other places.
Excellent. And I know that you're currently working on three other titles. Are they all launching at the same time?
Yep, they're all going to be launched at the same time. There's going to be different tiers and ways to bundle. But I have all three games right here. Like,
Cool. Let's see them.
let's see. So this one's Aya.
Yes.
It was originally published in Brazil. They did a small print run.
Hmm.
I played it for about 10 minutes, and I was already on my phone. Like, hey, I gotta have this game. Let me get this game.
Okay.
And so that was actually a good one because it was sort of a joke because I was like trying to like be silly with one of my friends who does localization, and
Hmm.
turns out he was really good friends with the people who published it. So I was like, okay, so this is serious. Let me actually
Yeah,
do
yeah,
this.
yeah. Yeah,
And it was
so
like,
that's through Grok, right?
yeah, Grunt Games,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's
yeah,
Louis. Yeah, that's great.
yeah. Luis, he's amazing.
Yeah.
But that was the moment that I realized, like, I'm no different than a bunch of these other publishers. I could just go and ask them to get it. So it was a pretty good turning point for me. For
Yeah, if you
Aya.
like a game, if there's nobody else doing it, why not, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's an amazing game. So like,
Hmm.
it was a no brainer for me.
Cool.
But yeah, we did Aya, and we got Loom. This is another one. This
Hmm.
is an abstract tile laying game. This plays sort of similar to dominoes, but you're making patterns with fiber.
Like weaving,
Uh,
like a loom.
yes, yep. You make loops and weaves and chains of different colors. But it's a really light game, kind of cozy in a way.
Hmm.
That one's really fun, very approachable. And then Dragon Scrolls. This one is the best way to describe it is kind of like Sushi Go with some sabotage.
Okay.
Basically, you're drafting cards and you're passing each other cards face down, and you're forcing the other players to kind of push their luck on what they have to add to their scrolls as they're building them out.
Right.
So the objective is basically to meet the different scoring requirements for the dragons on your scroll, and at the end, you just add them up, see what dragons you have. It's kind of like very lighthearted sabotage, but it still has enough that you can laugh about it. It's good.
Right. Good. And none of these are your designs then?
No, none of these three are my designs. I'm currently working on a couple other games. We'll see
Right.
if those come out anytime soon. But
Okay, so you
like
are really
messing.
going like full-time publishing then. Like you're publishing other people's designs over your own designs, which is like now you're a publisher.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy the entire process. The business of it is really fun.
Hmm.
Um, like like an example is one of my buddies that I met last year at Proto ATL.
Hmm.
He I believe it was last year, or the year before. I can't remember, but we were just sitting there playtesting games, and I liked his game, but it was nothing that I would ever think to publish. And he just ran a Kickstarter, and I didn't even know he was doing a Kickstarter, but I saw it. I was like, dude, you did an amazing job. I'm so proud of you. Like, maybe we could work together on something. And we just started talking, and like, that's this one here. I don't know if you ever heard of Wizard Community College.
No.
Yeah. So David, he's Magical Meerkat Games,
Hmm.
and he launched that one. So it's successfully funded, and now we're working together to bring it to as much as the mass market as we can. It's a really fun, like wizardy, narrative driven game where we just kind of like cast spells and silly like events, and
Hmm.
other people get to solve them for us. Like it's really fun.
It's cool. And so, how are you trying to get into mass? Then are you looking at Target and Walmart level, or Barnes and Nobles, or Books A Million, or just everywhere?
So obviously the goal is to get as many places as I can,
Yeah.
but that is part of why I have to build a catalog.
Yes.
Um, so early on, I talked to a lot of people to get advice on like how do I get into these stores, and obviously we know the stuff that gets into Target and Walmart are those are going to be like your evergreen games, and Barnes and Nobles is a little bit more lenient on it, but they still want to see something that's approachable and
Hmm.
uh, good for them. So. Uh, Talking to distributors is the main thing that you really got to be able to do unless you have that huge hit. And I'm working with Quartermaster Direct, which is a consolidator,
Hmm.
and they were pretty straightforward with me. They're like, "Look, they're not going to answer your emails. Like, I already know they're not answering your emails because you're probably sending them out. And you haven't heard anything, which is why you're talking to us."
Yeah.
And
You wouldn't be talking to us if you were talking to them.
yeah,
So
pretty much.
probably not
So
talking
they're
to them.
like, you have to have, multiple things that are doing at least relatively decent for them to,
Hmm.
want to take a look at it. And the only way to do that is to have a catalog of, at least 4 or 5
Right.
games. So that's why I kind of been pushing really hard on developing these products and really building up that catalog with quality stuff.
Right. And localization is a great way to do that too, because it's already proven in another language market, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
geographic area. So that's great. So you have some new games, you have some games that were released in other countries that are you're bringing in localizing to English language or to America, North America, and then you have your own games. So you're kind of doing the full meal deal here. That's awesome. And I guess this gets us to the core topic of today, which is pacing. Um, and this is that's kind of why I wanted to know why you were talking about pacing. It's like, oh, you're serious. Like this is seriously trying to go for a goal of building a catalog, right? With the intent of having games to get into bigger and bigger and bigger markets.
Hmm.
So the idea of pacing releases, and we see it more and more these days. I'm not sure who started it, but definitely All Play is like masterful at doing like, hey, here's 3 new games that each cost $20. You can bundle them all for 50. And by the way, on our pledge manager, you can also buy 17 other little games, right? Like Bitewing Games is a newer company that's also doing like a lot of small games at once. Um, and like I think what you said is really true. Like building up a catalog is a little bit of that respectability, that clout in the industry. You have like a lot of SKUs, which is really what distributors want. They don't want to have like a single SKU with on a single like a single what do we call those
Like
things that we
shipment.
bring things in? Yeah, shipment, skid, on a single skid,
Gotcha. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They want, because I don't know, listeners, watchers, viewers, if you've ever been to a distribution warehouse, they're broken down by skids. And if you have a skid and there's only like one thing on it, it's not a very useful skid to a distributor. They want to have lots of things in your area because they want to be able to offer lots of things to the buyers. And so the more you have, really, the more chances are there's going to be something that hits for the various buyers at different retail outlets that they deal with. And they would love to talk to you as the publisher, if you're a publisher, about multiple things at once, as opposed to one thing and go to another publisher for another thing and another publisher for another thing. They want to talk to one publisher for many, many, many things. And so they are really in the business of making sure that they can deal with a decent sized catalog. And so if you're if you're starting off publishing, one thing to do, which is exactly what Chris is doing, is building a catalog using other people's games to get, your product out there as well. I'm sure, Chris, like you love all the games that you're going to publish, but
Absolutely.
Carts and Potions might have a little special place in your heart, right? And all the games that
Yeah.
you end up designing yourself, right? So it's just a fascinating process of like attracting the right amount of attention requires building a little bit of a, well, a lot of a catalog, really.
Yeah. And that kind of is interesting. You said like I hold that one dear to my heart, but like the truth is I treat myself as another designer. Like I signed my own game. So anything that I would publish, I would treat it the exact same way and
Good.
give it the same respect and time and quality. Because like once I publish these games, it's not going to be like, okay, I got the games, I printed them, I bought all the stuff, it's shipped over. Now I have games. Now what do I do with these? Oh, I'm gonna print another 3 games. Okay, the last ones I forgot about, I don't care about anymore. Like, I don't wanna do that, you know?
Hmm.
If I wouldn't do that to Parks Potions, I'm not gonna do that to the rest of the stuff, so, I wanna make sure that's, part of the pacing is if I print these next 3 games here, in the next couple of months, what's gonna happen to Parks and Potions? I still have to market Parks and Potions, I still have to, care for it and push it into the next
Hmm.
year because it does have a lot of interest from a lot of people, and once these next 3 games come out, you know, how am I gonna public or push those and without forgetting about Parks and Potions? And then comes the other games that are also, coming. I have, another 1v1 poker game that's coming, and then I have 3 other titles that are signed that were in development. So how do I properly roll those out while still giving respect to all the games that I currently publish? And it's especially still have to stock, right? I have to
Yeah.
push it, I have to sell it. What's the point
Yeah.
of publishing it if I can't sell it? Um, so pacing on all of that, it has been a little interesting because people
Hmm.
people want their games to be delivered in a certain time.
Right.
Gen Con has kind of built this whole thing about you got the Gen Con releases, check this
Hmm.
out. So given and I recently learned that the reason for that is because the whole Chinese Lunar New Year stuff and it's the perfect
Sorry.
timing and it just comes through. So like it makes sense that it's perfectly timed with Gen Con. But
Hmm.
um, if I'm gonna do that, I'm trying to predict what those are gonna be so I can plan for the next titles. Um, but yeah, the pacing on it is really interesting because I can't push the manufacturer or the logistics faster. It's just that's their process. Once they get on the boat, that's
No.
another process I gotta wait for, you know?
Yep. Yeah. And that is so true that it is, like Lunar New Year, and I apologize for my people for Lunar New Year and how long we stop everything for. But, yeah, if you miss Lunar New Year, you've literally missed the boat. Like, there's a good chance that your game may not get on the boat. Because so what happens is in Lunar New Year, like all of China and many countries that are Chinese adjacent or that celebrate Lunar New Year will, or have a lot of Chinese people in them, will basically shut down for at least 7 to 10 days, and it takes a while to get shut it down. It takes a while to get it running back up. So by the end of it all, it's maybe like half a month worth of travel and all this stuff. China's a huge country, guys. So it is this time of year where everything kind of goes into this vacuous black hole of nothingness and then comes out on the other side of it. So if you don't have your stuff in before, you may not have it get to the right stage of drying after printing to get on a boat in time to sail across the sea, in time to get to shipping depots, distribution hubs in other countries, in time for the big events, which are Essen and Gen Con and things like that, right? So there is a lot of pacing and logistics, like backwards planning. We're always doing backwards planning. We're saying, okay, we need it by here. Okay, we need it by here. When do we have to have files ready? When do we have to have print files ready? Okay, print files need to be ready here. Then when do we have to have like graphic design done? And if we have graphic designs here, when do we have to have design pencils down? And if we're doing like multiple campaigns or multiple, like, I mean, like campaigns in like the game sense, like adventure campaigns, when does that all have to be written? And what can be done parallel? What can be done in series? What has to be done in series? It's a lot to think about. So
Mhm.
yeah, pacing is a huge and important thing in getting games to where they need to be, and even things like you don't think about this, or we didn't think about this like maybe 15 years or 20 years ago. We didn't think about like, oh, we need to get the game designed in time to make a prototype version to get to influencers, so that influencers have time to play it and make content and get that content circulated before we have the Kickstarter campaign. So when you add in all the little wheels and cogs that make up this whole big machine of getting a single game to print, maybe you're smart to print three little games at once instead, because the logistics for all three games will be roughly similar. Um, and then that's another reason why localization is a pretty cool idea, because it's kind of all done, right? The only thing you have to really do
Most
is
part.
translate stuff, right? But the most of it is really kind of already done.
Mhm.
So that's a really good way of bulking up a little bit, without having to add too much work to your system. And I was going to say, a cool thing you could maybe do, I don't know, have you talked to Luis about doing Parks and Potions in Brazil?
Yeah, we're
Maybe.
actually currently talking about it. It might
Hey,
happen, but we don't know.
that'd be cool. That'd be cool. I think South America, Brazil specifically, is a big burgeoning market. So there's plenty of markets out there to tap into, and it's just a question of getting your games in the right hands to the right people. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Pacing is definitely something that we have to think about when we're publishing games. But I also wanted to talk about pacing in design, like actually designing a game. And in your opinion, Chris, I want to get your opinion on this. Um, the games that you're interested in, are you more interested in games that are like shorter, more approachable, or do you like longer narrative arcs, or do you want ones with like lots of processing in it? What's your style of game?
Are you talking about publishing or playing?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
It
Uh,
I mean,
Playing
I
first,
publish
publishing
I
second.
publish mostly what I would wanna play, so it's okay.
Okay, okay. It's the
Yeah, what
same
kinda
question,
works.
Chris.
Yeah. Um, yeah, for the most part, it's very well rounded. I like mostly quicker games, things that aren't gonna take more than, like, about an hour, something
Hmm.
like that. Um, I have pretty bad ADHD, so, like, my attention span after an hour and some change, I'm kind of like, "Next," or whatever. Even though I'm having so much fun, it just happens, so, um, Gateway Plus games,
Hmm.
you
That's your
know
jam.
yeah, I think, those kinda games also don't get a lot of, credit for what they are because, you can look at a medium to heavyweight game and, people really like crunching the numbers and everything, but when it comes down to it, my opinion about Gateway Plus games is they have a harder time finessing the mechanics because you have to deliver such an impactful gameplay in that shorter amount of time and that shorter amount of turns. Um, so the fine tuning and polishing of those Gateway Plus games, I think, is like pretty awesome because
Hmm.
they put a lot of time into that.
Yeah, I mean, I will agree 100% that it's really actually pretty easy to make a really complex game. Like, it's very, very difficult to make a streamlined game. And if your goal is to get into target, it's even more difficult. Unless you
Super
want to,
difficult.
fall to the lowest common denominators of like making a Cards Against Humanity type clone, you can do that. But that's not. I don't think that's what a lot of game designers, like designers, want to do. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of art and science in making a simple game. It seems opposite, but it's not true. It is
It's
really
hard.
hard. It's really hard to make a simple but catchy and hooky game because you don't have much to work with, and you can't, right? It's got to fall into this price point. It's got to be easily digestible. You've got to be able to teach somebody it in like 2 minutes or less. It's got
It's
to
gotta
fit on a
not be the
shelf.
same mechanic as everything else that's exactly streamlined the way you want it.
Yeah,
You see Market Row drafting, you're like, "Oh, I saw that in Majesty. Oh, I saw that in this other game."
yeah,
So it's just the same thing with a different theme, but if you can really manage to streamline it and it can work really well.
yeah. And you're able to like gloss over a lot of it or pump other things into more complex games. So that mechanic that you saw over there, all these other things around it are different. So it's a different game. But when you streamline stuff and you have to take stuff away, then it gets really difficult.
Yeah.
And so pacing in game design. Uh, what are your thoughts on how to keep a game or I mean maybe a first question is what does pacing in game design mean to you?
So in design itself, not
Hmm.
the game experience. So in design itself, pacing it's obviously very subjective, depends on your goal. But for me, it's about meeting the objectives each step of the way to create the game. So, for example, I am a firm believer in fail faster. So, if I'm playtesting a game, my pacing is I'm going to fail 20 times very fast because my pace is fail faster. Uh, After I get to a certain phase, it starts to slow down like over time, and then my play tests become longer and longer.
Hmm.
Um, so, like pacing in that sense, it's
Yeah,
just
it's a good question. Yeah,
it's just go fast.
go fast.
Um, I think one of the mindsets for that for me is um, people want all the answers at once, but for me, I just want to hear no as quickly as possible because if and this is good for like designers who are pitching, especially is if you knew that there were only 100 no's before your first yes, you'd be asking questions to every single person you saw,
Yeah, give
and
me all those no's now. Huh?
yeah, basically, and
99
that's
no's, please, right now.
pretty much exactly, and that's what I do with the playtesting. It's like I just want to pace that like super fast and then slow down where I need to. But when it comes to gameplay experience or game designing for the experience, it really is, um, part of the process is to get people to enjoy the turns that they're taking.
Hmm.
We always run into analysis paralysis. Like I don't want to sit there and wait for you to take 5 minutes to play your turn. In some games that might be okay, but Parks and Potions, for example, if you had to wait for each person to roll the dice, take your potions, and then do your thing, like you're just kind of like, well, I didn't really feel that rewarded for the time I waited.
Right.
So being it that it's a simultaneous game, like you're always in the kind of in the know, like everybody's rolling the dice. You get to see what's on the table. Everybody good? Awesome. Let's go again. So now the pacing is everybody's together. We're doing it together. And it takes 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the number of players you have. And the pacing there allows the gameplay experience to feel more polished, more rewarding.
Right.
Even though some could argue that it's not super rewarding, I would say that it is proper rewarding because that's the pace of the game.
Yeah, it's rewarding the amount of effort that's it's given.
Correct.
Right. It's not going to be more or less. It's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
And I think it's true. There are definitely games like Daryl Andrews and I were talking like a long time ago, probably on Meeple Syrup because he used to co-host it with me, about how everybody's so anti downtime. Like there's a lot of people out there who are like downtime bad, and they're like no. Sometimes you need downtime to
Hmm.
like in a heavier, thinkier game. I want to think about my turn. I want to crunch my turn, but in that experience, we have to kind of set everything up to feel right for that pacing, right? Where if it's a game that's supposed to be like on a grand scale of countries working against other countries, maybe it can be slower. Maybe it can do that. Maybe we can have those feelings, and all the colors will be gray and somber and brown and beige, right? But if it's supposed to be this fun, vibrant game of like especially games like that emulate like a video game, a lot of those ones if the pacing is off, like if it's too plotting, I don't like it because I feel like I've been almost lied to by the game. Like, look, you're all vibrant colors and pixels, and like this is supposed to emulate a video game. It doesn't feel like it at all. So I think there's something to say about the pacing of your experiential game design as well. Like, what is the experience you want to create, and can how you use time affect that, right? So I love what you said about Parks and Potions, how simultaneous gameplay or rolling the dice that everybody uses at once, that not only speeds up gameplay, but seems to fit the genre or the experience that you wanted out of that, right?
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people, when you're making a game and it's not quite clicking, in terms of experience for the people. Like it seems to have a disconnect. That may be one thing that people don't think about is like, is the pacing off? And we think about it all the time with movies, right? Like one of the biggest complaints that my friends have about movies, oh, the pacing this, the pacing that, right? It wasn't fast enough for them, or it was too fast in some areas, and I didn't get it because the pacing was off. And I think we don't necessarily think about that as much in game design, of the game itself, of the experience. But I also like what you said about the game design part of it, where as a designer, you want to get to the crux of the issue quickly, which is done through playtesting and failing faster. Um, but then as you are delving more and honing in on the one thing you're working on, you're going to spend more time on that after you've kind of discarded all the things that you don't want about the game, right? And I think that's kind of what you have when you do like a fail faster mentality, or have a fail faster mentality towards game design, is you're going to end up figuring out what to discard, and what to keep sooner, right? And
Absolutely.
that'll let you get to like the core heart of that game. And then the long part is like figuring out, okay, now, now what do I do with that? How do I accentuate that, or how do I make that into like the full game that I want, or how do I make it have that experience? Have you had any games, or games that maybe you're publishing now, or that you're working on designing, where the pace of the experience seems to fit like the theme or the mechanisms really well, where the experience of the pace is good, or any games that you can think of?
I mean, all the games that I'm planning on publishing have very good pace. I would say one that is interesting is so Dragon Scrolls had a little bit of this where the time to score took a little bit too long, and we're
Right.
like, well, how do we get over that? Because it took just as long to score than it did to play the game.
Right.
So how do we accomplish that? And ultimately, it came down to how the scrolls were scored. Like we look at them and we're like, okay, we have this number of dragons here. Okay, that must be this many points. But when we added a scoring reference and you can go down the list of this dragon, this dragon, this dragon, like it was
Hmm.
very, very quick. So
Much quicker.
yeah, it's much quicker. And some people like that whole last second, oh, what did I get for this thing? So scoring is part of the experience is essentially what we did instead of making it two separate things. So like the poker game I mentioned,
Yeah, the
that
2-1v1 poker.
yeah, so that was, another issue was that was the pacing. So you'd go through this whole game, and then when you get to scoring, the scoring took longer than the gameplay to sometimes, and it was just kinda like, "Well, this was not very fun." So aside from making like Dragon Scrolls, we had two separate instances where we made the scoring reference part of the gameplay.
Right.
I learned from that, and I was like, okay, so we can kind of do that with Grandstand, is what the game's called. And we working with the designer John Gill, he managed to change some of the gameplay to eliminate that whole end game headache, and now the whole thing is just kind of like merged straight into the game. You know what's going to happen by the time the ending is coming, and then you have some of these last things that are just like fun, that are separate from what was before.
Right. So solving some of the pacing problems, or recognizing that pacing is a problem, is fixed through design, and you found that sometimes the overall game experience is improved anyways, just by thinking about how can we make this a little more snappy, or how can we make it fit the vibe better, right? Where it's like the vibe is, we want this game to be over in like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, and scoring shouldn't take one third of that, right? Because it's true, like there's definitely games that I played where if the setup is too long, or the scoring is too long, all these procedural parts, right? These procedural parts where I'm not making any decisions. I'm literally just a human computer, or setting stuff up or moving things around. I don't like games that make me do too much of that in a non-fun way, in a non-interesting way, or a way that keeps me away from the fun part of the game, which is making decisions, right? Is like meaningful decisions is when we talk about definitions of games, that's another part of many definitions of games, is that players are making meaningful decisions. And let me tell you, me adjusting 17 tracks by one, going up or down by one, as we're repopulating between rounds, that's not meaningful at all. It's not a decision
Yeah.
at all. And so that's another thing that in design we work really hard to try to take that kind of like busy work, I guess you could call it, out of the game. So in Grendel, the one that Alara and I are working on right now with Jay for Off the Page Games, kickstarted late or this year. Um, we had this idea where it's like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if nobody knew when combat rounds were going to happen, and they just kind of happen out of the blue? And we come up with like, all these ways. Oh, you can calculate this and you could add this together. And what's so many cards? And it's like, what, I had to pay attention? I don't want to pay attention. I want to make decisions. I don't want to pay attention. And so what we came up with was, well, what if we had a tower, and when the tower collapsed by because of weight that we put on it, that was when combat started. And I came up with this idea, and then our friend David, who is also a guy I design with, he's an industrial designer, so he made these towers for us. And then we're like, why don't we put these all over the place? And now we have three towers that do this, and it really actually made the game that much better because the proceduralness of it isn't isn't part of the process anymore. We don't have to waste brain time on doing that, um, which in a game as long as Grendel is a boon because adding more time to it was not the right answer. Not the right answer at all. Oftentimes we're trying to take away time from things. But I guess there are times when, slowing down the pace might be kind of okay as well. When you mentioned like Dead of Winter, um, one thing that I dislike is reading text on cards that isn't necessary.
Mhm.
And Dead of Winter, because of the crossroad system, and it was like the first incarnation of it, so it's probably better now. But there are so many cards in that game where it refers to a very specific thing or a very specific player, or a very specific character. If that character's not in the thing, I just read a whole card for nothing.
Mhm.
And so I find that games like that as well, is there a way to change how you design things like that so the pacing isn't off, that you're not
Yeah.
wasting time doing things that don't matter, right?
So I can say like a game like Smash Up where you have the 2 different decks of cards
Hmm.
that kind
And
of
you,
sort of work there you go, right?
yeah.
And so when you do read the thing, it will apply every single time because it's in there. So I think that's probably a good way to do stuff like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, like you're right. Like the pacing of reading something and going, "Well, why did I even bother reading that? That was boring.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that does, and I won't know the whole game, and I still read it." So that those
Yeah.
things are interesting.
We were playing a game, and we're actually dubbing it for another company. We're doing the second edition of a game, and there's a pick up and deliver mechanic where you pick up passengers and deliver them to places. And um, one of the player testers got a passenger in the first turn. It's like, oh, cool, this is passenger. And because of the way the game is designed, the city that he was supposed to drop the passenger off did not exist until like the second last turn of the game. Right. And so he sat with this passenger, just waiting to deliver this passenger. And you can only hold one passenger at a time. These passengers aren't the be all and end all, but it's like, look, that's really unsatisfying.
Yeah.
So in development, what we're doing is we're making sure that the passengers that can be delivered to like level one cities are earlier on in the deck, and the passengers that can be dealt to level three and level two cities aren't early on in the deck, right? It's not that the deck is tiered that way, but we're working on systems on how to do that. And then you think about games like Pandemic, where Matt Leacock does the whole, hey, before you do anything, set the deck up this way, right? You build the deck so that the deck has kind of the best ways to interact. And then you shuffle the deck back together, and then you see what happens. You shuffle that, and so everything is going to happen in very high volatile areas, which keeps the pacing up. Because if you just randomly took cards off the deck, you'd have this very big spread and not enough concentration to make anything trigger. Because the core conceit of Pandemic is chain reactions, right? That whenever so many of a cube get into place, boof, things explode. And you can't have that if your deck goes through every single card every time,
Yep.
because it's just not going to happen. So there's some really smart design and stuff like that where the pacing of the game is intrinsic to the deck design, right? Um, have you found any other experiences in gaming that have had that you'd say, hey, that's a really good example of keeping the pace uh, in line with the experience?
I would say Above and Below is probably one of my favorites when it comes to pacing.
Yeah.
Um, you have enough time to make your decision, and it's not one of those where you're hoping somebody doesn't take the thing you need every single turn, because you can come up with your plan and you can look at the table and you're like, I want that thing, and the chance that someone's going to take something exactly that you want is still possible, but it's not a deal breaker like in a lot of other games.
Mhm.
But
That's
when
a really
you
good point, I like that.
but when you get to the point where you're like, you know what, I want to go explore, somebody picks up that book, they search for that story. Everybody is actually excited to hear the story because it's such a an immersive part of the experience. So I think the pacing is really good. I make a decision. Hey, everybody, check out the result of my decision, and we
Mhm.
all get to experience together. Like you're reading the story, I'm choosing my decision, and somebody's going, "Oh, what are they going to choose? Oh, this is what I would choose." But they're not actually making a decision, but they're still enjoying it. So the pacing, even though they're waiting for their turn to come around, they're still immersed, they're still enjoying it. So I think it's an amazing job.
Yeah. I really like that concept that you're talking about, like, keeping people involved all the time makes pacing feel different, right? Like you said about simultaneous play or listening to a really well-crafted story that has a good immersion factor. Here's a hint, everybody out there. If you're designing, like, card text, you have to think about how long will somebody sit and listen to somebody else read something that doesn't matter to them, right? And no matter how well crafted the prose is, it's not long. It's just really, really not long at all. And so, like, the rate of speech of a human, you're looking at 120 to 150 words per minute. So you want to keep your text kind of down, about 75 words of text. So that would be, in my opinion, the maximum that you'd want on a card, anyways. But you just can't have too much because it gets really boring to
Mhm,
listen to something that has nothing to do with you. You can maybe involve other people, like one player reads, the other people makes a decision, stuff like that. But you know, it's a hard thing to do, and some games need it. But it'd be better to, sometimes less is more. Is all I'm saying. It doesn't have to be super florid text to be interesting text, and you should probably practice reading everything you write because sometimes you read it, it reads beautifully, but it does not sound good when you say it out loud, right? It trips off your tongue and all these things. So think about that as well with pacing. Um, Another thing that you mentioned about pacing is when somebody takes something you want, and I think it's fascinating how games play at different player counts and how pacing can change at different player counts. And Sushi Go and any drafting game is a really good example of that, right? Where like Seven Wonders was huge for a while, right? It obviously is, a top rated game for reasons. It's a good game. But there are definitely sweet spots in the player count because at the number of cards you have in your hand, you're guaranteed at some player counts to see those some of those cards again, right? Which changes how you play. And at some player counts, you'll never see your hand again. It's like, well, I guess I get none of these cards, or I can't plan for any of them coming back to me, right? And so I think that's another factor in pacing is like, what is the player count, and does the game adjust for that well? Do you think that, like, talking about your game about dragons, um, does that pace well because it is another drafting game, correct?
mhm.
And what did you do, or what did the designer do to make it so that it drafts well at different player counts? Is it different number of cards in hand? Is it different numbers of times around the table?
So, the main mechanic in the game is, I think, what holds it together and what makes it, very consistent. So what happens is everybody gets 3 cards. You look at it and you decide which of those cards you wanna keep or which one card you wanna keep.
Right.
You place it face down on your scroll from either to the left or the right, and then when everybody has placed their card that they've chosen on the table, everybody reveals, and then you look at your neighbors and you go, "What do their scrolls have? How can I sabotage them?" And you take your 2 cards and you go, "I want this person to have this one and this person to have this one," and you put them face down. Now, when everybody has 2 face down cards in front of them from each of their neighbors, they get to choose one of those to look at. So that's basically the pace, right? I'd look at one. Do I want to
Hmm.
place this one? Because it's going to jack me up, but I don't know what the other one is, and it can be
You
worse.
could jack me up worse.
Yeah, so you discard that one, you pick up the second one, you place it, and boom, that's it, right? So like the core mechanic of the game, the core pace of the game is very consistent at all player
Hmm.
counts because it's literally left right.
Yeah.
And the way it works in 2 players, because, you don't have 2 neighbors, is it turns it into sort of like a little bluffing where you put one face down and one face up. So you pass
Oh.
that over, and it's like it's still so
Yeah,
consistent.
do you want the devil you know or the devil you don't know,
Exactly, and
right?
he did it so well, and as soon as he showed me the two-player version, I was like, "Dude, you nailed it, like, this is amazing."
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great way of doing it. Yeah, and I think that consistency is another good term because that's what feels off to viewers or readers when pacing changes in weird ways in books and movies, right? And games are another form of media. We just happen to be like in it and we're playing it. So when the pacing is off, when there's like that, oh, this is a really dull phase of the game. Like, why is it like that? I think, it's up to us as designers to make sure that we're kind of keeping track of the pace. Do you ever time how long it takes for everybody to take a turn?
We did initially, but
Yeah.
it was for I mean, especially in that game, it's pretty consistent.
Mhm.
There's in a high player count, 4 to 5 players, you usually have somebody who's just like, "Huh,
Oh, I
huh."
don't
There's
know, I
always
don't know.
one, and then you're like, "Just give somebody a card already, come on."
Yeah.
But it usually doesn't take more than, like, 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah, that's great, right? And then, what about in, like, well, so Parks and Potions, everybody's kind of doing the same thing at the same time,
Mhm,
right? So it's a little more consistent as well, right? And that's the other thing. Like you can get like the longest a turn is how long the slowest player plays
correct.
in simultaneous play. But if you did that on a turn by turn basis, now it's like 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 1 minute, 15 seconds. That adds up to a 2 minute round
Mhm.
instead of a 1 minute round, right? Because again, if we're all simultaneously deciding, and you and I decide, and we're fast, but the third player's like, oh, and he's agonizing over it, and a minute later they play their cards, we've still only waited a minute instead of a minute and 45 seconds or whatever. So that is really neat too, thinking about how player count changes that kind of thing. Do you like or dislike games that have a lot of procedural stuff to track and move around, like between rounds or between turns or things like that?
Not necessarily, I mean, it depends on the game 'cause, uh each game has their time and place. So, for
Hmm.
example, let's say terraforming Mars or something, right? Like, you have time to not look at the table, not look at the game. You can look at your phone, play with your animals,
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
to somebody about a conversation, and it fits really well because by the time my turn comes around, that thing that I need is not gonna be on the table anymore, so I don't care yet. I'll wait
right.
until, like, the next person, and then I'll talk to that other person, right? So, I think having to take turns and take time is okay in games. It just matters what you're doing, why you're doing it.
Yeah.
But if you're not with the right people, obviously you're not talking. You're just kind of sitting there. All right, I'll just wait till my turn comes around. So I mean, everything has its place.
Hmm. I like games where even just a really simple pacing device is when do you draw your cards? When do you draw new cards? Right. So a lot of conventional wisdom is draw new cards at the end of your turn. It's the last thing you do, so that you can read them and learn about them during everybody else's turn. Right. You shouldn't pick up a new card at the beginning of your turn and spend 5 minutes reading them. Right.
Hmm.
So even stuff like that can change the pace and the feel of a game. Is this plotting or is it snappy? And what is it between that? I think there's a lot of gameplay that we think about in design that can get bogged down in calculation as well. So, like Magic the Gathering is popular for a reason because at the very base of it, it's very simple, right? It's like your creatures have two numbers and that's it. And they have like a casting cost, and that's it. And then all the other fun stuff is the interaction of how they work together with each other. But at its core, an individual card isn't too difficult to understand. It's in the combos
Yeah,
that's
it's the
where Magic gets really
optimization.
neat, right? So I wonder, if there's things like that where in design of cards that where the individual parts are pretty easy to understand and the greater whole, that's where the fun is. And I think that's exemplified by games like even like Century Spice Road. If you guys remember Century Spice Road, Emerson, when he made it, was like given like a very flat statement. Hey, you need to make this game. The rules have to fit on like one page. That's it. We're only giving you one page for rules, right? And because of that, it became really easy to play and learn. And the complexity of the game isn't in the rules. The complexity of the game is in the play, which I think is where it should be, in a lot of games. When a game has like really complex rules you have to remember and count and procedure, and this comes before that, and if you don't do it, it breaks the game. I'd rather play a game where it's like draw a tile, play a tile, play a tile, draw a tile. And all the rest of the complexity is in why am I playing that tile there versus there versus there? And that I know in my head as opposed to having to remember a rule,
Yeah.
right? So I think there's a lot of ways that as novice designers tend to like stick a lot of rules on top of rules and rules on top of rules. You have to kind of be a good judge of, is the juice worth the squeeze? I think I've said that 6 times a day to various people, right? Is the like, and what I mean by that is like the effect of the rule worth the time it took me to learn that rule or execute that rule or even put that thing on the table, right?
Mhm.
So overall, you're looking at that, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Is this game even worth putting on the table as a whole? And then as a designer, I guess your job is to cut out anything where it isn't worth the squeeze. But then also, if you like it enough, is to make it worthwhile, right? Make doing
Mhm.
everything that you do has to have like some subtle kind of payout.
Yeah.
And it's better if it's more instantaneous. But a lot of gamers are pretty good at saying, "Oh, I realize why that is important at the end of the game or at the scoring phase or whatever." So,
Yeah, I know a lot of times it comes up, like came up last night actually doing some rule editing with Ammon was we had a part of the process was to have, the setup and do all this stuff, and
mhm.
the pacing of that was also important, and we were looking through the steps because there were like 5 steps, and the first step was put the black tiles to the side. Second step was something else. Third step was now put the black tiles in a stack. Why did we put them to the side in step one and now we're putting them into a stack? So it's like it made sense because like, all right, those are over here. Let me do this. Now let me do this. But it wasn't efficient. It felt
Yeah.
like there was a redundancy, and we're just like, you know what? Let's just remove that. Let's put the black tiles into a stack on the side. Done. Step one's
Yeah.
done. So like that matters to people as they're setting up too, because now they're looking for component A, component B, component C, and just like stuff's all over the table.
It is funny, right? Like how we break stuff down and forget that, oh, what is a person actually going to do, right? Which is why, a piece of advice I often give is record yourself like doing the thing, and then see how you do it, and then write your rules from that because you probably do it the more efficient way than you write it. Because sometimes when we write, we get so down in the nitty gritty of procedure that we tend to like over complicate things for some reason. We're weird like that, game designers, right? But I think you're right about setup and stuff. It's like why and people get turned off by that. Like if they see like 7 steps in a setup, they have to be ready for that. But if they see
Hmm.
3 steps, they're like, yeah, I can do that.
Yep.
It's psychological. They might be 3 sort of compounded steps that if you broke it up was really 6 or 7 steps, but because they see 3 dots or 3 numbers, they're like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I could already tell now when we break open a box and I look at the rules, like immediately I'd be like, by the time I get like 2 minutes into this, they're not going to want to play anymore. So I'm going to start packing it up. I'm going to be like, yeah, we're not playing this. And I already put it away because I already know that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely times like I've definitely had games like that we get to the table, they're already set up for us because the person who wants to play knows that it's like awful to set it up. And so they've set it up, all the hands are already dealt out, everything's in the right places. And I do that with my games too. Like I'll set up a bag. This is a player one bag, this is a player two bag. It has everything you need to be the player one because I don't want to find it in the place that it was supposed to go in the insert or whatever. So I just make little baggies for every player, and we start off like that, which is a weird way to organize things because, like, when you're making or when you're printing the game, I would actually rather do that too because it speeds up the process. But a lot of your card counts are going to be like 60 cards, right? But okay, I need 4 of them for each player, and then the remaining cards are broken up into two decks of 20 or whatever. but it's just listed as 60 cards, right? So I don't know. There's so many ways to maybe make that work better. Um, and part of it is in the manufacturing process, right? Like you can, if you want to pay somebody at the factory to like sort your cards, they'll do that, but then they have to do it for every copy of your game, right? And that can be very expensive because whenever you stop the line to make a human do a thing, you've just increased your cost
Oh
by
yeah.
quite a bit of money. So don't do what I'm saying, but maybe do what I'm saying. Like, so if you could design a game where every player's stuff, like one player's stuff, is on one piece of punch board, that's great. Do that, right? Where
Yeah.
they're starting $5, the two tiles they get, and like their player marker is all in one piece of punch. That's beautiful. Do that, and then you store it in one space.
Yep.
Anything you can do to like streamline stuff is usually good. There's definitely times when stuff has been streamlined out where you take out like the rough edges and it makes it less fun for some reason, but that's rare. I think usually I would rather have most stuff have a little bit more streamlining. Um, but I also understand that sometimes you can you can you can smooth so much stuff away that you smooth away the soul of the game too. Have you ever had that happen? Like where you're like, I cut too much out.
Uh, Not that I can remember. I know it's happened, but I can't
Yeah.
remember like exactly what. I was like, no, I got to put that back in there or something.
Yeah, sometimes the sometimes like, and that's why I think art game design is as much an art as it is a science, right? That there's just some feel that you get and you don't know why, but the response was better when this was in, and like now that this is out, yeah, it plays faster, but it's not as engaging, or it just doesn't have that same vibe that it used to have. And so there's definitely some things that are like you cannot tell unless you actually play, and you have to play it. You have to observe what your players are feeling and saying and experiencing before you can really decide if that thing should go in or out. Because mathematically, there's definitely things that are mathematically this should not be like this, but then you go and play it and nobody cares about the math, or the math doesn't matter as much as you thought it did. Which is why balance, my friends, is fake. Balance is fake. It
It's
kind of is. It's not totally fake, but
no.
again, there's more art to it than just the science of it and the math of it. So there you
Hmm.
go. All right. So that was a long talk about balance. Wow, that was great. Hey Deadpan, hey Luke, hey William. It's good to see you guys. Um, we're gonna actually close down the show because I gotta go mark papers because that's my day job is marking things. Just mark. I just mark them. So if you would like to talk to me more about game design and whatnot, you can find me at Senfeng Lim on Blue Sky, Maple Syrup on all the things, and we can find you, sir, Chris, at moonsagaws.com. And if you look up Moonsaga WS, it might not have the WS on it, but on like Blue Sky and Twitter and things like that, you'll also find Chris there. So
Yeah, it's just all at Moonsaga WS.
yeah, Moonsaga WS all the time, everywhere. Shout outs to everybody who was here. And you know what? I think we're going to probably have shows over the holidays. So if you know any Chris's, like I said, it's the Christmas season, so we will have more Chris on the show if possible. So if you know another Chris who likes game design, send them my way. That'd be lovely.
I
If it's a
feel ashamed I
Christine,
didn't do my
that's great
research.
too. It's okay. You can email me later with your Chris of choice. And if you want to help keep the lights on, check out patreon.com/maple syrup for the things that are there. So next week, I don't know, but it'll be a Chris. Whatever it is, it'll be a Chris. And we'll talk about something fun and interesting, as we always do. And last but not least, Mr. Eastridge, can you give us some final advice?
Uh, just do the thing. Um, if you're scared of failure, failure is part of the process. Just do it. If you're afraid to do it, just give it 5 minutes, and before you know it, you'll be giving it 30 minutes.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good. That if just a little bit of time is all you need to dedicate towards something, and by the time you look at your clock, if you actually do enjoy it, it'll be hours and hours
Mhm.
and hours, and then it's just past. Um, at some point, if you want to talk about that, that's called a flow experience, and we can talk all about that because there's a lot of game design stuff that works with flow.
Mhm.
Matt Leacock gave a really good talk about it at GDC several decades ago now, and Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who first came up with the term, just passed away last year. So it's a really good game design thing to think about. Flow. Thank you very much, Ash. We'll talk to everybody next week, and yeah, come back and we'll see you then on Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern time. All right, Chris. Thank you so much. Oh, Chris, how did you get into falconry?
Oh my god. Um, Doctor, so I'm really into primitive arts and survival stuff. So like put
Yeah.
me out in the wilderness and just let me do my thing and survive it out there. And was learning about different traps, and I found a trap for birds of prey, and I was like, whoa, that's a thing.
Oh,
Um,
like you trap like trapping a bird of prey.
yeah, so I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
what? Do people do that? And then from there, so actually, my buddy was like, "How do you trap a snake?" And I was like, "I don't know." So I started looking up traps, and I found a balchatchery, which is a specific type of trap to catch birds of prey.
Right.
And before you know it, I was already talking to somebody on a primitive arts forum, and I met them a couple, like an hour away, and
Yeah.
got into it. And it took quite a while. I think it was like 8 years before I was able to finally have my own bird. Um, but yeah, I ended up getting my license and everything. So yeah,
That's so weird. That's so neat. So it's called primitive arts.
uh,
Is that kind of field of hobby of
yeah, just
like
like
survival skills?
yeah, basically, like if you ever see the show Alone or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Naked and Afraid. Like, yeah,
yeah,
I completely enjoy doing that stuff. If you put me out there naked, and I'll just have fun. If it's storming and it's raining like crazy, I'm having fun. Like, I enjoy it.
yeah. That's so funny. Like you're gonna like I'm gonna be naked and afraid, but only for a couple minutes because I'll go find something to make clothes out of.
No, I'm more scared of like something in the dark other than like a bear. I'm like, what's out there that's spooky? I don't know. It could be aliens or something.
Well, there you go. Well, say hi to Holiday for us. All right, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for joining us on the show. We'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye.